What's up guys, welcome back to the shop. In today's video we're going to be using that drive chain again. This is a new piece and it's still kind of dirty just like the last one, but this time I'm going to be cleaning it up in some acetone and I'm going to make sure it gets in there real good. I'm going to leave it soaking for a bit, move it around some, and make sure our chain is as clean as possible for this weld. On top of that, I'm also going to be doing it in a canister instead of just putting it together like I did last time and putting an edge steel on the bottom. As well, in this canister it's going to be a specially made canister, a canoe style canister, so that I can lay everything down. Here's my canoe. I've already prepped it ahead of time and got that spray paint going, and I'm just going to lay on either side, and I'm going to be putting some coarse steel in the center. These are 3 pieces, 1/8 thick of 50-100. It's roughly the same thickness as the chains are in width, so it's gonna serve a good purpose. I have a little bit of space in there still, so we're just gonna fill that in with extra powder and hopefully that goes well. And I'm making sure that the powder gets in there as best as I can. That's why I have that little paintbrush with me, and I'm just brushing it in, hitting it with the hammer, making sure it fills all the voids. That way we have no openings or cracks like we did last time. And we're gonna cap it off and hopefully everything goes well. Since this is a canoe and not a regular canister like I normally do, I'm pressing it on the sides. I'm making sure that I'm actually pressing down to compress all the pieces together, and my coarse steel is in the center. If I press it on the other side, and my coarse steel runs the risk of moving around, so I made sure to check that ahead of time and made sure I didn't press on the wrong side. And I'm pressing with my longer dies, that way I can get as much of it as I can. Here I'm pressing it as much as I can, and I'm pressing it in an oval manner, that way it can release the caps and hopefully come out. After a while you can see the sides are starting to rip. That's because I made this canister out of multiple different pieces, so the welds that I made aren't as strong as, one solid piece. So here we go, it releases very nice and clean, and that clean release is thanks to the white spray paint that I coated the inside of my can with. As well as this powder that's on the outside of it. I believe it's the residual from the white paint, so it's not a big deal. Here's the next day when I got to work on it again, and I'm just gonna work on drawing it out, getting a nice consistent thickness throughout the entire blade. I'm making sure not to over press it so my coarse steel stays in the center, but since my coarse steel is the same thickness as the rest of my materials, it's a lot more difficult for me to screw it up, but I'm still being very careful as I press it. I am planning for a full tang on this knife, so I'm going to draw out the handle material as much as I can, and I'm going to draw out the knife in general as much as I can. These are some new drawing dies I just made specifically for this, and they have about a 1 inch in the middle, and the rest is for drawing to the sides. I think I'm going to reduce it a little bit as I go forward because they don't press as aggressive as I want. I might just reduce them down to maybe 3/4 or 1/2 inch. That way I can get more movement as I press. These are still pretty good, but I feel like it's definitely not enough. Here my material is still well into the 3/8 of thickness, so I have plenty of material to work with. I'm just trying to get a nice even tang. I'm really pressing this guy and I'm making it basically by ear. I'm not really sure what kind of knife I'm going to make in general, but I do want to give it as much width as possible. That way I can show the pattern off as much as possible and pretty much make it look good for the video. The knife I do end up making, I'm actually very happy with the actual design of the knife. And for the record, I don't really go into a lot of these videos with the thought of what I'm gonna make. I just know the material because that's what I set up for my video. But the knife that I end up making, very rarely is it already pre-planned. For example, on this build, I originally thought I could make a cleaver because I had so much material. Alright, so I have a rough sketch of the knife and its design, and I want to talk about it really quick. I have a lot of steel here, but because of this piece where one of the chain links fell off, button, whatever the hell it's called, the little rod fell off, I don't want that in my knife. So I decided to cut it out, which if I do it like this, it's gonna give me a pretty nice shape. I want to give it a very, I don't want to give it too much of an aggressive rock to it, so I don't want to angle it too much. It gets rid of that, and I think it looks pretty nice. So that's gonna give me the most reveal of the pattern while also getting rid of that guy. This extra steel, whatever, it is what it is. And my tank came out a lot longer than I needed, so I'm gonna chop it off there, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna give it a rough grind and get it ready for heat treat. The shape I ultimately end up doing is sort of like a sheep's head, sort of like a Serbian type cleaver, but smaller. It essentially works like an Akiri, but it's a lot thicker and a little bit beefier than what an Akiri would be. Overall, it's a pretty nice knife. The profile is pretty nice and I like it. I had a lot of trouble here with drilling my holes. This was pretty much the worst part of the build so far. Well, the worst part in general. I could not for the life of me drill through those. I ended up putting it back in the forge and annealing it overnight. Letting it cool down slowly. Hopefully that would solve my problems. But oh man, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. I ended up breaking my drill press. One of the pulleys ended up getting damaged, and so I had to move to my hand drill, and I still could not do anything to it. Alright guys, so I cannot drill through this guy for the life of me. I've been trying and trying and trying. I can't. My holes got moved a little bit. You can see this one's a little bit lower, so I was like, oh well, I'll just do it with hidden pins. It doesn't matter, I can't drill through it, so I can't even use hidden pins to fix that mistake. And I'm like, damn. Overall, the knife looks pretty good. I have two spots right here where these pins fell out regardless, so that defeated the purpose of cutting it down a little bit smaller. But regardless, an 8-inch knife is preferable. At least that's what I believe. It makes the knife a lot more easier to manage. I prefer actually like more of a 7-inch knife, but different sizes have different applications. So I ended up deciding to go get a small wheel to cut some notches into it so that the glue could pass by, and I ended up calling my brother on the way there, and he told me, why don't you just punch the holes? So I said, that's a great idea, let me go make a punch. So here I'm making a punch, and I'm not sure what kind of steel this is. I just found this in one of my drawers, and I'm assuming it's some kind of hard carbon steel. If not, I mean, it got the job done. So I tried to harden it a little bit in some oil, and I mean, it's simple, but it'll get the job done. Be sure to wear gloves with that. That's why I put my glove on, because I was burning my skin. And it worked pretty well. Bent the crap out of my knife, but I straightened that back out. And overall, I was pretty successful. So if I ever have this issue again, I know that I'll have my handy dandy little punch for a rainy day. Alright, so my holes have been punched. They're not the prettiest, but we'll deal with that when the time comes. Now it's time to reprofile this because the displacement of steel, move some stuff around, re-clean up the profile, and start grinding our bevels so we can heat treat. Oh, I still gotta punch the knife. I gotta put my maker's mark in it. But I'll do that before I heat treat. Good stuff, good stuff. So after it's done being profiled, we got our handy dandy muriatic acid. I'm going to put it in there to give it a nice wash, and that'll loosen up all the carbon and stuff that's on the outside and make sure that it's a lot easier to get off with a rough wire wheel. And it does a pretty good job. The longer I leave it in there, the softer the scale is, but it does a really good job. I want to keep this knife on the top part with a forged finish, and wherever I grind for my bevel, I'm gonna put it in the ferric chloride to make sure it pops out real nice. I think it'll show both sides of the process, and it's gonna give it a nice unique look towards the knife. And here's my maker's mark, and we quench. I already cycled it a couple times before quenching, as I normally do, and that's just to release any stresses that the knife could have. After heat treat, I'm gonna grind in my bevels and get my finish grind all the way up to 120, in which it looks pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. And I'm gonna hand sand that part up to about 600 grit. For my handle material, I have our very fancy mystery wood that I have no idea what it is. And a few years back, I bought, and I still frequently buy, from a local guy who makes tables, and he carries different kinds of exotic woods. And I bought this from him, and it didn't have a label on it, so I don't know exactly what kind of wood it is. If you know what kind of wood it is, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. But for me, it's gonna be mystery wood. That pattern is coming out very nicely. All it needs is some coffee to darken up, and we're gonna have an awesome look to it. Now is the time I ask you guys to like, comment, and subscribe. That helps me make cool videos like this. And by liking, commenting, and subscribing, you're showing YouTube and the algorithm that you like the video, so it'll push it out to a wider audience so more people can see the work that I do. So if you would do me that favor, if you find entertainment or any kind of value in the work that I'm doing, I would really appreciate it. And our handle is done. Here I'm grinding it flush on all the sides, and I'm going to start shaping out my handle. As with knife design, I also kind of just wing the handle, especially on a knife like this that I'm probably going to end up keeping and not selling. I'm very particular about the kind of quality of knife that I like to sell. So when the knife doesn't really meet that quality, which this one really doesn't, I don't like to sell them. So I have a whole bunch of knives here that I just don't feel comfortable selling. And for me, that is strictly on preference. So here I have a fully sharpened knife, and it is pretty sharp. I only sharpened it up to about 1,000 grit on my 2x72, but it is very sharp. And here's a final look on the knife. I'm really happy with the way it came out. You can see the different pins and the different material in there, as well as the steel powder that I put in there. And with the force to finish all the way down to the Damascus that's on the inside, the way that pattern welded steel comes out, I'm very happy with it. And it has that cool factor that the other one had, but without, you know, falling apart and stuff. Overall, I'm very happy with the final result, and this guy will end up in my kitchen, or maybe it'll end up as a gift to somebody in the future. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate you guys, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.